Hello and a very warm welcome to Middle East Matters. I'm Sanam Shantier. Coming up on this week's programme, a reversal in regional policies. Powers, including Riyadh, who were initially pushing for the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad, are now saying the Syrian leader is here to stay. With the Islamic State group largely pushed out of Syria, residents are now slowly returning home, but some are being maimed and killed by unexploded and sometimes hidden mines. Also joining us from New York City, Elizabeth Schaeffer-Brown, who's the co-executive director of Nadia's initiative, an organization that's pushing for demining operations in Iraq's Kurdish province of Sinjar. We start with a country which has been embroiled in civil conflict since 2011. 4 years on, in 2015, Bashar al-Assad's government was in trouble. His forces were losing ground. But now Syria's regime, backed by long-standing allies Russia, Iran and Lebanon's Hezbollah, is getting a tighter grip over the territory that it had lost to rebels. And so, in the eyes of the international community, Assad has emerged somewhat victorious, and there's no viable alternative to his rule.
Bashar is staying. That's what Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince told Time magazine during his international tour. Saudi Arabia was one of the many countries pushing for the removal of Bashar al-Assad, a key ally of its rival Iran. The kingdom is one of those who funded rebel groups fighting troops loyal to the Syrian leader. But now, his departure is anything but a top priority.
Yemen is much more important for the Saudis these days in terms of their conflict with Iran, and I think that they don't have as much energy to expend in Syria or regarding Syria. And the third thing is the Syrian opposition, which was supposed to be key to replacing the Syrian regime, has proven to be something that has never coalesced and does not have a realistic prospect of replacing the Assad regime.
The Saudis are not the only ones shifting over Syria. This week, Turkey's Recep Tayyip Erdogan met with his Russian and Iranian counterparts, Assad's unwavering allies who have backed him both on the ground and diplomatically. Turkey has gradually gotten closer to that alliance, tackling the government's main concern, removing Kurdish forces away from its border.
He's decided to use the Kurdish issue in order to buttress his national support, and that has put him on a collision course with most notably the United States, but the entire rest of the anti-Islamic State coalition.
In the West, several leaders such as Emmanuel Macron have already changed strategies months ago, saying there will eventually be no other choice than to talk to Bashar al-Assad. The U.S. has yet to confirm where it is heading. Donald Trump has said U.S. troops will soon leave, but some advisors are pushing for a stronger presence to counter Iran and its allies.
Today, Syria, which has regained over 90% of its territory from the Islamic State group, is left littered with unexploded booby traps. So for some of the civilians returning to their homes, it's not all smiles and celebrations. Here's the story of Mohammed Kouraji, who had to organize a funeral instead of a homecoming party.
Mohammed had promised his wife they'd return home to Raqqa, the Islamic State group's former stronghold in Syria. But as he was cleaning up the house, a mine hidden by jihadists exploded.
We entered one of the destroyed rooms. As my father and I were cleaning it up, a mine exploded in our faces. My father was reaching for a copy of the Quran, and when he grabbed it, the mine exploded.
The 26-year-old's father died. In Raqqa, this has become a daily tragedy for the many residents who chose to come back. The jihadists were defeated in October after months of combat. But thousands of unexploded devices remain concealed inside houses.
This is an explosive belt. Under the bed there is a circular mine. There's another one in the refrigerator in the room over there. We called someone to get rid of them, but he said, "I want $100. I answered, "I don't have $100, so just leave them and we'll never come back in."
Local authorities are only able to conduct 10 demining operations per week throughout the city, so people have taken up demining as a source of income. A business as lucrative as it is deadly. Each day, this Doctors Without Borders clinic treats 6 to 7 patients injured by mines.
Since we started, the total number is around 300 patients, and 50% of the blast patients goes to other hospital to get surgeries, and around 20% are already dead.
According to the United Nations, the number of unexploded mines in Raqqa is the highest ever recorded in the world. But despite the risks, some 60,000 people have chosen to go back home.
Now, according to the United Nations, Iraq is the 5th most mined country in the world with 59 mines per square mile. That's an estimated 10 million miles in total. Now, one organisation, Nadia's initiative, is pushing for the removal of the explosives and booby traps in the Sinjar province, which is a region situated on the Turkish-Iraqi border. For more on this, let's cross to its co-executive director, Elizabeth Schaeffer-Brown. She joins us from New York City. Elizabeth, thank you very much for speaking to us here on Middle East Matters.
Thank you.
Now, can you tell us more about this initiative taken on by your organisation to push for demining operations in Iraq?
Sure. So Nadia's initiative is a public foundation that was founded by UNODC Ambassador Nadia Murad. The mission is to bring Yazidis living in IDP camps back to their homeland of Sinjar. Our number one priority is security, so that Yazidis feel safe returning to their homeland. And so demining is the first mission of the foundation.
Now, but of course, this operation appears to have hit a very major obstacle from officials in Iraq.
Yes. So prior to this fall, an organization, a partner of France's demining initiative called MAG, was beginning the demining process. But when the Iraq government took over the region, the new registration process changed. And apparently it's being held up now, and they can't do anything.
Now, last week, representatives from Nadia's initiative, including yourself, you're in Paris meeting with the French officials, and this comes at a time when Emmanuel Macron is really trying to fill a so-called power vacuum in the region left by the United States.
Yes.
But just how much clout do you think the French have here in trying to push this initiative forward?
Well, as you mentioned, there is a power vacuum. France, particularly, President Macron has been the only world leader to show moral courage and give resources to the issue.
But do you think they have any clout in trying to push this initiative through at a time where it's hit a stumbling block?
Yes, in fact, there's a multi-tier registration process involved in allowing MAG to demine in the region. One day after we met with French officials, 2 of those steps were completed. So I'm very hopeful that the remaining steps will be complete in the next few weeks so they can continue.
So some progress there. Now, late last year, a mobile training team deployed by the NATO conducted this training course in manual demining for Iraqi security forces. Is that, in your opinion, enough in terms of what's being done by the international community?
Definitely not enough is being done by the international community. No nonprofit, as of now, can work in Sinjar. Yazidis can't return. The few who have returned I've been told, have often returned to their homes and they've exploded. There are no hospitals, there's no schools, and there's nothing.
Now, we've heard that officials in Turkey are now threatening to start an offensive in Sinjar, something that they've done in Syria's Afrin region. Do you think something like that is going to help the situation or further destabilize this region?
No, it will be a disaster. It will only further prolong the ability of Yazidis to return to their home. I would say that the one positive development of that threat is that it forced the Iraq government to send a battalion to the region, hopefully displacing the militias that are competing with each other. which is one of the main reasons that many Yazidis that we know living in IDP camps say they can't return.
Elizabeth Schaeffer-Brown of Nadia's initiative, thank you very much for speaking to us here on France 24.
Thank you.
That's it from us this week. Don't forget you can reach out to us on Facebook, Middle East Matters, France 24 and Twitter. Do stay tuned.